Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the February 11th meeting of your Aiken City Council. We're going to stand for the invocation at this time, and we have a scout troop with us that's going to come up and do our pledge afterwards. So if you please rise for the invocation. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this day, for this time, for the city that we have the privilege of living in and serving. We just pray that you would be upon each of us here and the families that are represented. We pray that your guidance would be with us as we make decisions. We ask for your wisdom. We pray that you would just touch this meeting and that everything that is said would be pleasing to you. In your name we ask it. Amen. Amen. I think we have troop, correct, was it 146? I'm going to ask the gentleman from 146 if they would come up at this time. We appreciate you gentlemen being with us today. If you want to line up right here, right there, you're perfect. That'll be good. There's a microphone right up here. So, and I'm going to ask each of you, if you would, if you could introduce yourselves to us, we'd appreciate it. So,
you see the microphone?
It'll pick you up. There you go.
There it is.
My name is Patrick Watkins, and I am a Star Scout.
Patrick, what?
Thomas Watkins, and I'm a tenderfoot.
Thomas, are you in kin to Patrick?
Gabriel Duncan, and I'm a tenderfoot.
I'm Chase Krabs. I'm a Scout rank.
I'm Jonathan Kingery, and I am also Scout rank.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us today, and I know this is part of learning the civic duties of our citizenship, but it means a lot, and we appreciate all the values you learn in scouting. So our flag is behind us, so we're going to turn around, and I'm going to ask if you would to lead us in our pledge, if that's all right. So if you would. Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would y'all help me in thanking?
I would like to take a picture of them.
We'll get on there. That's right. At this time, I'd like to recognize Mayor Pro Tem Gail Diggs for the additions and deletions to the agenda.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Under additions or deletions to the agenda, the only thing that we have is the removal of item number 1 under presentations. It's the presentation of South Carolina Department of Disabilities and Special Needs 2018 Silver Palmetto Award. Are there any other additions or deletions? With there being done, I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Okay, thank you. Councilman Waltz. All those in favor of the agenda as presented with the removal of item number 1 under presentations, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Before the meeting, the minutes were distributed to council for their review. Is there a motion for the acceptance of the minutes as presented?
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Price. Is there a second?
I second.
Councilwoman Diggs. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Moving down to presentations, item 1 is removed, so we go to item number 2, which is an update by our Cardis on downtown infrastructure project. And I'll recognize our city manager, Mr. Stuart Wiedenbaum. Stuart.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. We do have Jim Shelton. I didn't recognize him dressed up in a suit and with a beard, but he is here tonight for our brief quarterly update on the status of our Seymour project addressing the Sand River Basin and the sewer reclamation.
Thanks, Stuart. I got about 5 minutes just to go through an update for where we are. I just want to go over our progress to date, the benefits we've delivered, what we've got that's upcoming work, and our projection for finishing the project. There are almost 300 miles of sewers in your system. This project covers the 44 miles of the most highly prioritized pipe. It's primarily in the downtown area. It's the oldest pipe, and it's typically all the old vitrified clay pipe. So far, we're 67% of the way through the 44 miles of pipe that we're scheduled to investigate. So about 2/3 of the way done. Looking at the pipe, in terms of actually doing the rehabilitation work, we're about 60% of the way through that. So we've got a real good bite on it at this point in time. A couple things in terms of what we have found. There's about 1,000 manholes, a little over 1,000 manholes in the project. We had difficulties finding about 1/5 of those. So far to date, we have found most of them, but a lot of them were buried, couldn't be found, had to be dug up, that type of thing. What we did find is we opened them up and got into the sewers that a lot of the diameters and a lot of the materials that we have in our records were wrong. A lot of the pipes that were listed as 8 inches are actually undersized 6-inch pipes. A lot of the pipes that were shown as one material were another material. We're working our way through all of those at this point in time. The other interesting thing that we're finding is that when you build a sanitary sewer, there's usually a manhole at either end. Many of the sewers in the oldest part of towns don't have manholes on the upstream side, which make them impossible to maintain, very difficult to get in and clean, and impossible to rehabilitate. So those are, that's an issue. All of the homes that are connected, that come out to the mains that are in the street, are connected by what's called a lateral. That's a 4-inch or a 6-inch pipe, and those usually have clean outs that a plumber can use to remove any clogs that are in there, or we can use for rehabilitation or inspection. Many of the houses in town don't have those clean outs, so it makes it very hard to maintain, inspect, or rehabilitate. All of the findings that we're collecting, though, we're going to go into an updated GIS, which is your graphical information system, which will bring all of those 44 miles up to accurate reflection for what's actually in the system. The bulk of what we're doing is a grouting technology. I've talked about this before. What I show you on screen is what the failure rates have been on each of the joints. So each stick of pipe that's in the ground has a joint that's there, and you can see how few of them actually hold water. The majority of them are leaking. The larger diameter pipes in particular appear to have been dry laid, the 6-inch pipes similarly. We've got about 2/3 on average of the joints failing to hold water or hold an air test. That's about what we expected when we put the job together. We knew these were going to be old pipes. The thing that's coming up higher is it's taking a much greater amount of grout to actually get these joints to seal than what we expected, about twice the rate of normal. The technology that we're applying, though, to these pipes is yielding a tremendous amount of benefit to how much longer they'll last and how much better they'll perform over the upcoming years, really upcoming decades as we move forward. This is just an image of what this looks like inside. The sewers are in service as they're working. That sewage that's going by. That's a packer that has a camera in front of it that's taking pictures on the backside, or hoses that come in to bring the chemicals out and push it out into the soil in order to basically rebuild the gasket around the pipe. What we have found is that almost half to 2/3 of the joints are not only not holding air, but when they were installed, they were broken as they were put in. We've got a new technique that we've developed called low pressure grouting. This is the first place it's ever been done. We've been very pleased with how successful that is. And job to date, that saved the city about $2 million by applying that technique to these broken pipes versus the next least expensive approach to fixing it. So we're pretty pleased to be able to deliver that level of savings. We're also addressing all of the tap connections. These are the lines that go to your house. We're using a sock that looks just like that photograph there. It's 8 feet long. Originally, when it gets all pressurized, it comes down to about 6.5 feet. 95% of the lateral connections from the houses are leaking. That's about twice the rate that we had expected when we got here. We're able to seal them with the amount of grout that we anticipated, but it's twice the leakage rate. On the 6-inch lines that we have, there are almost none of those laterals can be addressed with these techniques. The pipes are just too small and too poorly laid to be able to use those. It's also important to note that we're only doing the first 6.5 feet of the lateral. We still have all the remaining lateral that goes back to the house, much of which is under private right-of-way, which haven't been addressed under this phase of work that will need to be addressed under the next phase.
You're doing the first 6 or 8 feet?
That's correct.
Which is probably
to some degree on the private property anyway.
No, that's almost, or that's entirely in the public right of way.
Okay, that's from the sewer to the
Yeah, from the
property
sewer
line.
toward the house. So we've got the lowest first portion of it, which is almost always the worst portion of the lateral. But in some cases, especially where we're in the greenways and the lateral's going all the way from one side of the street under the greenway to the other, they can be quite long and still under the public right of way.
Okay, thank you.
We just started to get into our manhole assessments. What we're finding is that the manholes are structurally sound in almost all cases. They're standing up. We're not seeing any bad collapses. What we are finding, though, is that two things that really impact the amount of flow that comes through the pipe. Almost all of the manhole covers are below grade. They haven't been raised as the streets have been paved, and they all act now as storm inlets. In addition, many of the sanitary covers, which are supposed to just carry the sewage from your house, have covers with holes in the top, in some cases up to 24 holes. So they're basically storm covers. So we're using our sanitary sewers as storm sewers in order to carry the flow through. Those really should be addressed if we're going to make any significant reductions in the amount of flows that we send down through the interceptor and onto the county treatment plant. We have some manholes that lack bottoms. They were originally constructed just in the dirt. Those will need to be rebuilt as well. There's probably only about 20 or 30 of those in the project. And there are some projects, especially off of Grace, that are strongly impacted by the sewer gases, which are corrosive, attack concrete, and tend to melt them away. The picture on the right gives you an idea of what those sewer gases can do.
Excuse me, is the manhole cover thing just a matter of putting the right manhole cover on it, or you got to change the collar and everything else?
Usually it's changing the collar as well, and they're almost always sitting recessed as well, so they all have to be raised up as well. When the streets are repaved, they've either got to be milled or they've got to put a riser ring in there, otherwise the sanitary sewer, there's many places where the flow is preferentially going into the sanitary sewer and not even going toward the inlet. So it's just it's a construction characteristic that can be easily fixed. In terms of where we are, there's 30 excavator point repairs. That's where we've got to actually dig down. The pipe is collapsed. We've done 19 of them so far, half by Arcadis, half by in-house crews. We reported this statistic the last time. This is an update. We're up to 5.8 miles of sewer that can't be fixed with the grouting technology. 1.6 miles of those are broken but fixable with the next technology, which is a cured-in-place liner. But we've currently got almost 4.5 miles of pipe which are so badly broken or are so small, the 6-inch pipes. The only way to fix them is by either pipe bursting them or digging them up. Now, we are in the process of developing a technique for those 6-inch pipes that we hope will greatly reduce that scope of work. But we have to, just like the low-pressure grouting that we did for the ends that were cracked, we've got to trial that to see how effective it's going to be. In terms of the project, it's because of all the defects that we're finding in the basically twice the failure rate of what we expected. The work is taking longer than we anticipated. Right now, we're expecting our work to go through to around Thanksgiving of this year before we finish what we've got. The good news is that we're well under budget. There's probably going to be enough money in the budget to do an additional 3 or 4 miles of pipe. We're going to make that decision between now and our next quarterly report to you. In terms of the field observations, there are many pipes that were not included in this prioritized section which flow into the pipes that we're doing. And just looking down the pipes, it's very clear that those are in every bit as bad a condition as the pipes that are included in this contract. So while we've got the prioritized pipes within this phase of the work, there are still quite a bit of pipes that are in really bad shape. That's all I had tonight to report.
I have a couple questions to ask.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Councilwoman Price.
Thank you for this presentation. Jim, we've been talking about this for a while, and as I listened to you and saw what you provided to us for review, my thought was, what if we had done nothing? What if we had not contracted this work out to have an analysis done of what needed to be done? But I've got one of the things that you had on one of your pages First of all, the third page, you prioritize Sand River Basin sewer, 45 miles of oldest sewer. Are we finished with that, the Sand River,
No.
the oldest sewer?
No, we're not. So the 44 miles is about half of what's in the old sewer inventory in Sand River. There's 142 miles of clay pipe. We've got 3 basins. Sand River is the biggest and the oldest. So there's still another 40-plus miles in Sand River, and then another 50 miles outside of Sand River on top of that. The newer the pipe, they tend to be better. A lot of the pipes that we're fixing are nearly 100 years old. So we are getting the worst, much of the worst of them, but we're not getting all of the worst of them. Does that make sense?
It does. And then on another slide, you had as a footnote, there's a tremendous reduction in root penetration and likelihood of backup, sinkholes, potential, and leakage reduction.
Yeah.
Share some more about that and what can be done. What should we be doing in terms of the penetration of roots and so forth?
So,
That's right.
yeah, that's a wonderful question. So, anytime you're driving down the street and you feel, or you see a sinkhole
Right.
developing, that's almost always related to either storm sewer or sanitary sewer. Those are the pipes that are open inside, their gravity, and the soil goes into that. The groundwater goes in that. Leaking water pipes that are next to that exacerbate that. By sealing these shut, we are the grouting work that we're doing and the lining work that we're doing will prevent that from happening. So the sinkholes that we have developing in these areas will drop off by an order of magnitude.
Wow.
So that'll stop. In addition to that, we've got beautiful trees everywhere. Those trees love to go to the sewers because they're wet and they have high nutrient content. The chemical, we put a chemical called diclobinol in the grout, which is a root retardant, plus the chemical itself tends to block them out. In areas where the roots are very, very bad, we use a chemical called diclobinol, which is an herbicide, basically, that kills the roots. It doesn't harm the tree. It's not like it's a copper sulfate, but it kills the roots out of the sewer, kills them just outside the sewer, and helps to prevent them from coming in. These two things, the grouting and the chemicals that we're using, will go a long way toward reducing the amount of damage that's caused by the roots and reduce the number of backups that we have caused by the roots. The same techniques are being used in the laterals and will help each individual homeowner as well.
Okay. We get this job completed at the end of the year. What would be next for us?
I think that's a question for Mike. I know we've been talking about what we see when we turn left and right and look down the sewers and how bad they are. We've also reported at our last meeting that there's work coming out of this, the excavation work that needs to be done in the greenways that will need to be done out of this. So I think you're looking at least one, probably 2 more phases of work over this. I think you probably have another 50 miles of highly at-risk sewers. This is my personal opinion, not the engineering department's opinion. Before we've got ourselves into a stable situation with regard to the very old sewers. Sewers are typically meant to last 40 to 60 years, and most of these sewers are pushing 100.
Right.
Thank you. Mr. Dewar.
Answer to your previous question, you talked about helping the homeowner. In my neighborhood, there's not a lot of them, but I've seen cases where the pipe between the sewer and the house is bad, and it usually shows up by disaster inside the house with the toilets and everything. What did you mean by whatever you could do to help the homeowner? Could the homeowner use this chemical proactively, for example?
No, these chemicals aren't available to the homeowner. About the only thing that the homeowner can do is have a plumber come and apply these same types of chemicals to his own systems to address the private side of the system to eliminate the roots that are in there. Installing cleanouts will certainly go a long way. When you cut these, think about when you prune your azalea bushes, right? That when you cut them, they grow back and bloom out. Roots in the sewer do the same thing. So cutting them is a wonderful temporary solution, but they grow back twice as thick. So you don't want to keep cutting them. You want to use these chemicals to, I use the term burn them back, but it's an herbicide. It kills them back, and it prevents them from growing back typically for a decade or more.
But if you wanted to be proactive, you'd have to hire a plumber with a camera system.
On the private side, right, that's not,
Okay.
yeah, so the city's obligation for the sewers ends at the property line, which
So
is,
on these streets, I've seen, I think it's your people that come by and they're numbering the manholes. But I don't know that they're picking up and checking any pipes. Did they do?
there's actually 2 projects that are going on. I think that's part of the modeling project. Yes. So the city is, with another firm, is in the process of building a hydraulic model for the sewer system. So there's another firm that's actually going through and numbering them. If they're numbered, they're not Arcadis.
Okay.
Arcadis is drawing the white circles on them, saying that we finished. The numbering is from the modeling firm. We are opening ours. We have manhole inspections of each one, and we've put robotic cameras down all of the sewer lines that's within the 44 miles of what we have.
Okay, thank you very much. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Jim?
From?
I'm from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
How many crews you got out there?
We have 7 firms with anywhere from 1 to 6 crews per firm. On any given day, there's probably 5 crews operating. And that's been the case since we started February 26th of last year. So we've been here long enough, we feel like we live here now.
Well, I appreciate it, because I talked to one of the guys, and he said he was moving here. He was staying, so I know we got one new
I
resident.
think I'm falling into that ballpark, that as well. Yeah, I'm enjoying myself.
Jim, thank you for being with
Thank
us
you very
tonight.
much.
Impressive work, Jim.
Thank you.
All right, moving down our agenda to old business. Item number 1, this is a discussion of appointees to various city boards, commissions, and committees. Recognize our city manager, Mr. Stuart Biedenbaugh.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have 32 pending appointments for vacancies. Right now, we do not have any individuals for council consideration. However, the city clerk reminded me that we have, unlike other boards, our election commission only has 3 members, and one of the terms currently held by Ms. Rebecca Vignier is due to expire in August of this year. Since we are going to have a municipal election in November of 2019, we are bringing that to your attention. Ms. Vignier is willing to continue serving, and she has completed necessary training to be an election commissioner, so that is for council's information if they want to consider that reappointment, as she filled an unexpired term. And that is what we have tonight, Mr. Mayor.
All right. I would like to suggest that we consider Ms. Vignier to be reappointed.
Yeah, absolutely, put it on the next, can we vote for an hour, or should you put it on the next
Be the
council?
next.
It would be the next. Yes, we'll have it on the next agenda for council consideration.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other names for consideration?
I have 2 reappointments.
Okay, Ms. Diggs.
Okay. First one is John Breck. I'd like to reappoint him to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And for the Senior Commission, I'd like to reappoint Bill Godson.
All right.
I have a new appointee for the Equine Committee, Chan Carmen, Chan spelled C-H-A-N, Carmen spelled Carmen. Is it 2319 Chucker Creek Road? And I'm getting her to fill out. Send it to you.
Down to 30, Sarah.
All right. Any other names for consideration? All right, thank you. Old business to item number 2. This is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to rezone 901 Hain Avenue from limited professional LP to residential single-family RS-15 by title and ordinance amending the zoning of property located at 901 Hain Avenue southwest from limited professional to residential single-family. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Councilman Dwar. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have before council tonight second reading of this rezoning request. to rezone 901 Hain Avenue Southwest from limited professional LP to residential single family RS15. This item came before the Planning Commission at their January 15th meeting, and they unanimously, those present unanimously recommended the rezoning request, and council unanimously approved this at first reading at your your January 28th meeting. So it's before you tonight for second and final reading.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Biedenbaum. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from council? Okay, all those in favor of second reading, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to know if Harold and Lynn are here. Stand up, please. Thank you for that rezoning. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the positive response.
Okay.
Welcome to the city.
All right, moving down to new business. Item number 1 under new business, this is a first reading of an ordinance to amend the involuntary towing franchise ordinance and rotation list by title, an ordinance amending section 46-26411 of the Aiken City Code regarding charges and storage fees for the involuntary towing within the city of Aiken. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Waltz. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Price.
If you can have it.
Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mayor. Periodically, we do review our involuntary towing franchise agreement, specifically the fees. We last looked at this over 5 years ago. We began meeting with the wrecker companies in late 2018, and we are now ready to bring an ordinance to amend the fees to you. Again, I want to point out this only addresses the fees, not the rotation. That's a separate item. But what the wrecker companies have unanimously recommended to public safety, then the chief recommended to me to bring to you that we adopt the South Carolina Department of Public Safety, which is essentially the Highway Patrol, their wrecker rotation fee schedule, and that would be an approximate increase of about $40. The last increase of the wrecker fees were in 2011. So we have attached for information the rotation list, but again, we are only considering tonight a consideration of an ordinance to adopt the South Carolina Department of Public Safety's rate schedule to mirror that with our city fees.
Okay, very good. Is this what the sheriff's office?
Yes, the sheriff's office does use this as well.
Okay, very good. Any comments from the audience? Okay, any comments from council? Okay, all those in favor of first reading, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. I know we had a lot of interested people in the audience tonight to see that, so I appreciate you being with us tonight to watch that item. Moving down new business to item number 2. This is a first reading of an ordinance for budget adjustment for Small Alley Project. By title, an ordinance amending the budget of the City of Aiken for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Councilman Jerideau. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have before you, well, first, at our last meeting, the ADDA Director, Haley Knight, gave a sort of a status report and an update, and one of the things she touched on was this proposal to make improvements to the little small alley that runs between Palmetto Package and Nandina up to the alley where Aiken Brewing Company and Tailgate Tavern are currently located, and also doing some minor improvements to some parkways. We estimate the total cost to not exceed $25,000. This would require a budget adjustment in our hospitality tax fund. The funding would come from cost underruns when we completed the historic railroad cut project. That came in under budget, so we do have sufficient funds to accomplish these projects, and it is up for first reading for council's consideration tonight.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Biedenbaum. Any comments from the audience? Comments, questions from council?
You said 25,000? This, did I not read say 15?
Well, she.
No, the alley project is going to be 15, but there's also some improvements to do in the downtown parkways that this would encompass as well.
Is this all on private property?
We are going to get permission from the property owner, similar to when we got permission to close the alley. The work would commence. The city owns a portion of the alleyway from the alley itself to about where the Nandina's building starts, and then you have two other property owners. I know we've gotten verbal permission from those property owners to do this work, and we're working to get something in writing.
Who's going to maintain it?
It will be maintained by the city.
Okay.
All right, any other?
This would be a tremendous improvement in the appearance, so I'm happy about this.
I like the lights. They look good in Park Avenue down to the train station.
Duly noted.
Duly noted.
All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down new business to item number 3. This is a first reading of an ordinance for budget adjustment for Aiken Senior Youth Center construction by title, an ordinance amending the budget of the City of Aiken for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Is there a second?
Second.
Beardo, comments from staff?
Thank you, Mayor. In February 2018, Council did approve using $325,000 in hospitality tax funds to complete the Aiken Senior Youth Center project. We did not. Again, that was just through staff error, starting with the city manager, that it wasn't included in the budget, so in this annual budget. So we do need to do a budget adjustment, which will allow us to apportion this money appropriately. The funds are there. It's not a case of that. It just was left out of the revenue from carry forward and needs to be properly put on the expense side as well. So this is a first reading of a budget adjustment.
Very good. Thank you. Any comments from the audience? Comments, questions from council? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to item number 4, this is a resolution approving a municipal highway project agreement for improvements to US 1 and South Carolina 118 Hitchcock Parkway. Is there a motion?
So move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Price. Councilman Girardeau, thank you. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the first of 2 resolutions that we have been given by the South Carolina Department of Transportation that requires the consent of City Council. The first one is the intersection improvements, which is part of the overall Hitchcock Parkway project. Just to kind of remind those attending tonight in council, this project goes back in 2012. We began having public, first we got funding from the Infrastructure Bank and other sources to do a full-blown adding additional lanes to Hitchcock Parkway. And after much public input in 2014, City Council asked the Infrastructure Bank they gave money back to reduce the project scope. So what we are looking at now is safety improvements, meaning turn lanes at key intersections, addition of traffic signals, plus we are also putting in a multi-use path from, I believe, around Hickory Ridge Road back towards Huntsman Drive that will cross Hitchcock Parkway at certain spots. So what we're looking at in this first resolution is the component of the project which is at Highway 1 and Hitchcock Parkway. And it will add some turn lanes and make some improvements to the egress off of the SC 118 onto US 1. One of the things that at this point, based on state law, all of these agreements require is that any utility conflicts would be addressed by the owner of the utility. As we saw with Silver Bluff Road, at times that can be an expensive proposition. We have looked at these projects, and for the most part, these two items before you are staying within the existing right-of-way. And in terms of this particular component, US 1 and SC 118, we see two utility conflicts. However, one is a sewer line, which is about 18 feet below the surface of the road, so we don't anticipate a conflict there since the improvements will be well above ground. And there is a water line that could be in conflict, but staff has shared with me that is a minor relocation. But we have tonight these two resolutions, so by way of a long-winded introduction for this one, this will serve as, I guess, my comments for both of these items. So first, we have before you the resolution for the project at Highway 1 and Hitchcock Parkway. And I also would like to note, I'm very appreciative that Adam Humphreys of DOT is here tonight to answer any questions that may arise about this agreement or these projects. He also distributed a comment sheet that he sent to me today, and that sort of provides information about this project. So those are my comments, and if I may, these will be my comments on this item and the next item.
Thank you, Mr. Beedenbaugh. All right, any comments from the audience? Okay. Any comments or
Just to
questions?
point out to the folks at home, this is putting a traffic light at Dibble Road, which the city has wanted very, very badly, and will be a great addition. The multi-use path is going from Silver Bluff to Varden on that side of the road. Then we cross the street and it goes from Hounds Lake Drive to Huntsman. It'll be 10 feet wide. We're also putting a traffic light at Hickory Ridge. And the reason that we're doing this is not because of public input. We ran out of money to do the multi-lane project. There's still a lot of hard feelings about that. People still feel we should have put made it a 4-lane road. There's even some internal dissension in my household, as a matter of fact. But nonetheless, we just didn't have the money, and so that's why we're looking at this. And I think DOT has done a great job. I spoke to Adam before the meeting. He addressed my concerns. I think this is a very good project, and I think construction would start, if things go the way they're supposed to, and they never do, second quarter 2020? So still a long way off yet, but I appreciate what DOT has done for this.
Thank you, Mr. Dewar. Councilman Price.
Adam, thank you for your presence here with us this evening. It starts the second quarter 2020, and what's the span of time in terms of, you think, work beginning? You want to come to the
Adam, if you would,
mic,
please come on up. Thank you for being with us this evening.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you all for the opportunity to come tonight. So we think the second quarter of 2020 is when we would let the project. Typically, to work out contracts with the contractor, it takes a month or two just to get the contract language in place. So towards the end of summer in 2020 is when construction would actually begin. With it being multiple intersections, as you know, Hitchcock Parkway is a long corridor, and there's 6 intersections, I think, altogether with this US 1 at 118 project, as well as resurfacing the entire corridor and shared use path. You could see up to 18 months to 2 years to construct it.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from Mr. Humphreys?
I'll say something. All of these things need to be done, but I agree with Mrs. Dewar. More could have been done and should be done, and we're just putting it off till we have to.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate it.
I think the gentleman has a question, if he's allowed to.
Yes. Yes.
Is there a diagram of the project?
So if you go to South Carolina Department of Transportation's website. There's a public involvement portal. And
I do have that, and if you could come after the meeting adjourns, if you give me your email address, I can forward that document to you. Adam was gracious enough to point me to that last week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, all those in favor of this resolution, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. New business item number 5, this is a resolution approving a municipal highway project agreement for corridor and intersection improvements along SC 118 Hitchcock Parkway. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman DeWar. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. The comments from staff have already been recorded in the record. Are there any comments from the audience? Okay, any other comments or questions from council? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the second resolution? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Item number 6 under new business, this is a resolution accepting a deed from Aiken County for a paper roadway. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Waltz. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a procedural cleanup. We, in October 2018, approved a resolution to do some due diligence and potential construction of a road parallel to the Pawnee Nielsen and to Whiskey Road. All of the property in that road footprint was owned by the Michael D. Rubin Family Limited Partnership, with the exception of a so-called paper road that Aiken County owns. And they have, back in July, they approved transferring it to us, but it needed to be transferred to us via a quitclaim deed, and that process was done. And this is a cleanup just to accept the quitclaim deed of the paper road, which is illustrated at the very last page of this agenda item, and that's before you tonight.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Beedmo. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council? Okay, all those in favor of accepting a deed from Aiken County for the paper roadway, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. We move to that section of our agenda, petitions and requests. Item number 1 is a request for banners in the downtown promoting various events. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Okay, we have a motion. Ms. Diggs, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Councilman DeWar, comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have the following requests. First, our Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Department requests banners listed for the Hopelands Concert Series between April 10 and May 1, 2019. Horses and Courses between March 10th and April 10th. The Farmers Market in the Alley, or Market in the Alley, between May 30th and June 28th. The Dixie Boys and Junior Boys Baseball World Series, July 15th through August 8th, and Trunk or Treat, October 14th through 28th. Mead Hall has requested for their Strawberry Festival banners to be hung between the 12th and the 27th of April. And all of these entities, our Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Department and Mead Hall, will coordinate with public safety on location and getting them hung.
All right. Very good. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council? Okay, all those in favor of approving this, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Item number 2 under petitions and requests. This is a recommendations from Accommodation Tax Committee for allocations for funds from the 2018-19 cycle. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor, that we adopt these
Okay. Thank you,
recommendations.
Thank you, Councilwoman Price. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Councilwoman Diggs, comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And actually, that is a typo. This is for the 2019-2020 cycle, so
thank you.
My error, but I did want to correct that for the record. This is the ATAX committee approving these funds, and we estimate $350,000 will be available for these requests, and we will be coming back later to have a second funding cycle to award remaining funds for projects that did not apply in this round. And we do have staff from Parks, Recreation, and Tourism here tonight, and we appreciate the work the staff did as well as our Accommodations Tax Committee.
Very good.
Is Peggy Penland?
I see Ms. Brackett is with us this evening. Good evening, Regina. Any comments from the audience? Okay. Any comments or questions from council?
So there'll be another opportunity for other organizations to apply?
Yes, yes, there will be, Ms. Mayor Pro Tem, of remaining money that's available in this cycle, yes.
And Stuart, could you, or maybe someone on our staff, just for the sake of those who may not know, talk about how the makeup is of the committee for the accommodations?
Yes, we do have, it is a committee that's appointed by City Council, but it's appointed of hoteliers and others that are involved in bringing heads on beds, so-called heads on beds to the city. And these projects that are funded, it is a reimbursement. They don't get this amount up front. They have to demonstrate that they spent marketing money on their event to market to folks that are over 50 miles away and greater.
And where could they get those applications?
I'll ask Ms. Jessica Campbell to come up and elaborate on that question.
Good evening, Jessica.
Evening.
You didn't think you were going.
Behalf.
You didn't think you were going to get away without
Or as I'm speaking, that we are going to reopen the funding cycle February 18th through April 18th. So it'll be back before council May 13th to award the remaining $41,000 should we have people apply. But there were certainly a handful that had received funding in the past that did not apply this cycle. So we want to reach back out to them to give them that opportunity. And hopefully there may be other events coming to town that would be interested as well.
I know Peggy spoke of the possibility of assisting them in updating their websites and so forth, because some people were not in compliance and did not receive any funds in one of the cycles. Is that still ongoing?
Yes, and the committee hopes to have a work session as well in the future so that those that are applying are in compliance with what those requirements are.
Okay.
Yes.
And to get an application, can they come to?
They would see Mary, our tourism supervisor, Mary Rosbach, but we do post that on the city's website as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Jessica. Appreciate it. All right, all those in favor of the recommendations from Accommodations Tax Committee for allocations for the funds from the 2019-2020 cycle, please raise your hands. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down, items for information. Anything under issues and updates?
I just would like to remind and note for the public record that we did get the reimbursement for, Department of Transportation through the County Transportation Committee did approve that project with the excess C funds to do the intersection improvements at Highway 1 and Generations Park.
I'd want to remind everyone, February 25th will be our State of the City. I think it is filling up, so please call and RSVP to that if you're at the city manager's office. If you can attend, I think you'll enjoy it. Anything else for the good?
Tina Turner going to be there?
No.
But Dolly Parton is.
No, for the State of the City.
All right. We want to thank Troop 146 for being with us. Gentlemen, again, thank you for your participation with us. I know we have several people also with Leadership Aiken County. Could you raise your hand if you're here with leadership?
Yay.
Appreciate y'all being with us. What a great program. I'm an alumni from a long time ago, so great program to have. Okay, and we have one more announcement.
I would like to note, and we will certainly be publicizing this more as we get closer to the date, but the official ribbon cutting of the J. Carroll Busby Public Safety Headquarters Building will be Sunday, March the 31st at 2 p.m. And we'll be, again, publicizing that as between now and then. But it is everyone is welcome.
Very good. At this time, the City Council will go into executive session pursuant to Section 30-4-70A2 to discuss negotiations incident to a proposed contractual arrangement and proposed sale or purchase of property. Specifically, City Council will discuss a proposed contractual arrangement with the owners of real estate regarding the possible purchase and/or acquisition of land in the City of Aiken. The meeting will be held in room 204. With that, is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman DeVar, Councilman Jarrett, a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, and council will go in.
I like Mayor Lee.
We do not anticipate any action afterwards, and we'll come out and adjourn thereafter. So we thank you for being with us. You're welcome to stay. The only other action we have is probably to adjourn. And if you need us to sign something, we'll certainly do it before we go in.